This Week in Connecticut with Dennis House starts now.
Good morning. It is Sunday, July 28th, 2024. Straight ahead today, the presidential race, of course, has dominated the headlines, but Connecticut also has a race for the U.S. Senate. Senator Chris Murphy is up for re-election as the Democrat seeks a third term. And two Republicans are vying to replace him and will face off in a primary on August 13th. Today, they'll face off in our studios. They are hoping to snap a 42-year drought for the GOP, who last won a Senate race in Connecticut back in 1982 with Lowell Weicker. And with us now, Gerry Smith. He is the endorsed candidate for the U.S. Senate for the Connecticut Republican Party, and Matt Corey, his challenger. And gentlemen, thanks so much for being with us here today.
Thank you, Dennis.
Thanks, Dennis.
So I want to begin because obviously the presidential race really was upended with President Biden deciding not to run for re-election and Kamala Harris, his likely replacement. So I want to ask you that there are some Republicans in the U.S. Senate right now who are calling on President Biden to resign, saying if he's not able to run for re-election, that he should step down. Do you agree with that?
I think it doesn't matter whether what we've all seen from the beginning is that there's been a challenge, and I think the question is how long ago did Vice President Harris and Senator Murphy actually know that this was going on? Have they just not been paying attention, or have they not been spending any time with him? But either way, at the end of the day, whether he steps down or whether he stays in and Vice President Harris takes over in November, I expect President Trump to be the president in November.
Mr. Corey?
It was evident that we could all see the cognitive decline in President Biden. You have Senator Murphy just waving. He was on Dana Bash. He just could not make up his mind whether the president should step down or not. We need somebody that's got leadership in there that would say, and I agree, he needs to step down as the president, because we're dealing with foreign adversaries. He's making decisions on foreign policy, domestic policy. It's very dangerous for the country right now. We have brave men and women in our service that are in peril right now with somebody that can't make the decisions that need to be made, especially with world leaders.
You say he should resign. You think he's okay to stay in office till January?
I think it's a decision that's made by them. Yeah.
Yeah. There's been so much talk about President Biden's age. Do you think he's too old to be president?
He's up there in years. He is definitely. Age is not necessarily a factor. I think it's cognitive age. Age is a number. I mean, I've known my uncle was 93, and he was actually pretty sharp for a 93-year-old. So age is not specifically a number. It's actually how you cognitively conduct yourself.
Mr. Corey?
He's in decline, Dennis. He needs to step down.
So right now, Donald Trump is the oldest nominee in American history. He will be Biden's age midway through his term if he's elected. Is that too old?
It's not too old, especially if you're in great health as President Trump. He takes command of the stage, command of what his policies are going to be, especially with foreign policy and domestic policy. You can see the command in his voice and the optimism that he's going to bring to this country.
Mr. Smith, are you concerned at all about it?
Not at all. There's a night and day difference between the two gentlemen. You look at President Trump, he comes from strength. He's all the things that we've heard about President Biden, and he can run around with 20-year-olds. I believe that Donald Trump definitely has the acumen, the strength, and the ability to actually lead the country again in November.
There are some people in Connecticut have asked me, why would these guys want to run for the U.S. Senate against Chris Murphy? It is considered to be an uphill battle. More well-known Republicans in the state, namely the mayor of New Britain, Erin Stewart, she's not running for it, and others have passed as well. Why are you running? Why do you want to be a U.S. Senator?
You know, as I said before, I mean, the main reason I'm running is, and Senator Murphy actually said it, we need somebody who's going to actually care about the people of Connecticut. And what Senator Murphy said is the people he cares about most are those undocumented Americans. Why am I running? I think it's not a throwaway race. I think this is a race that can be won. And I think with the right candidate, with the right experience, and I think that's me, I think if I get on the ticket, I can actually lift the other ticket as opposed to, you know, those that could actually drag the ticket down if they're not competitive in their races or haven't won any elections.
And so there's no doubt in your mind you could win if you win the primary.
I believe I can. I wouldn't be in it if I didn't think I could win it.
And Mr. Gerry, why are you running for the Senate? I mean, you've run before.
I ran before, so I've never lost a race. You only lose. Well, listen, you only lose when you quit, Dennis. And for the love of the country, I'm running. And we need to bring positive and optimism back to Washington, and Senator Murphy does not have that. And my main concern is, The Senate is giving power to the executive branch and the globalists, not only that, to the UN, to make deals on the behalf of the United States. Whatever happened to the treaty process that the U.S. Senate used to have? So not only overseas, but domestically. Senator Murphy does not stand for anything that is going to help Connecticut or the citizens. So we need to bring optimism back there. So I'm running to be a United States Senator, to be the voice of the people. When you give up those powers to unelected bureaucrats, that is what's happening in Washington, not only on the U.S. Senate level, but on the congressional level. So we need somebody to go down there. You can't sit there and pass a 1,000-page omnibus bill 48 hours before the bill needs to be passed and think you're reading it.
There are generations in our state who don't know what it's like to have a Republican senator represent them in our state. The last one, it was in the 1980s, Lowell Weicker. So which current Republican senator in Washington right now do you most align with? I'll begin with you, Mr. Corey, on this one.
Tommy Tuberville. I mean, here's a guy he's a blue-collar guy. Worked his way up through. He was a coach down there, and he's just a guy that cares about America. There's plenty of Senator Kennedy cares about the people. And look at J.D. Vance. Here's a guy that brought himself up from poverty, served in the United States Marines. I served in the United States Navy. Here's a true story, a blue-collar story, that he's the fabric of America. He's the fabric of the state of Connecticut. We come from a blue-collar background here in the state of Connecticut, hard-working people.
Mr. Smith, which senators do you align with?
I think Tom Cotton is a good senator, and I also think J.D. Vance. I think that's why when you look at the story, to come from humble beginnings, as I myself have done, and to be able to rise up through the Senate and represent the great state of Connecticut, I think it's true that just show that you can actually bring some common sense. You can actually come from someone with a winning record, as I have, and actually come up and win and represent the people of Connecticut down in Washington, D.C.
We're going to talk a little bit about Senator Vance right now, because a woman's right to choose whether to have an abortion is such a big issue here in Connecticut. Women talk about it all the time. It's, if elected and you are sent to Washington, people want to know how you would vote on abortion. Do you favor more restrictions, which have been talked about by your fellow Republicans? In fact, Senator J.D. Vance, who could be vice president if elected, has in the past said that he favors a national ban on abortion. What is your stance, Mr. Smith?
It's been relegated to the states, and I think that's where it belongs with the overturning of Roe v. Wade. I think that's where it belongs. And I think that those decisions should be made at the state level, state by state, so women's rights can be protected. They can actually legislate it on the local level, because the climate in Connecticut is different from the climate in Mississippi, North Carolina, and I think that it's where it belongs now, back in the states.
Do you support the current abortion laws in Connecticut?
I am pro-life, so I think that as long as I'm for life, I just think that the current laws are a little bit liberal, but I am pro-life, and I do support the laws that are here now, and I would not support a national ban.
You would not support a national ban. Mr. Corey, how do you feel about this?
I stand with the citizens of the state of Connecticut. It was brought back to the states, Dennis. Every state had different laws on that abortion. I do not favor a national abortion ban. We need to look after whatever women's needs are, and whatever the unborn is, we need to take care of those people. But I stand with the citizens of the Connecticut on that. But going back to winning municipality elections is a complete different thing than winning statewide elections. So I have won. So I've won 169 towns. I was only a U.S. Senate candidate, the only candidate in the state of Connecticut to win every single town. So this isn't just about winning a municipality election. This is a U.S. Senate race.
Why do you think you're a better candidate for the U.S. Senate than Mr. Smith here?
Because what I stand for, I stand on conviction. So when President Trump had secured the nomination in March, we had another candidate that said he would support the nominee. You need somebody with conviction, Dennis. I stand with conviction. So when you ask me a question, I don't waver on it. And that's what politicians do at every level. They waver on their convictions. I told you that I stand with President Trump. That was the nominee I supported. I supported him since 2016.
Mr. Smith, you have the party's endorsement. Why are you the better candidate, Mr. Corey?
I'm definitely, I beg to differ. I'd say, you know, when you look at my record, I mean, the last two elections I won with 84 and 82% of the vote, and I won those elections. They weren't primaries. They were hard, straight-up elections. My opponent in 12, he got 1.8% of the vote. In 14, he got 37. And these are statewide congressional races. Lost all three with less than 39% of the vote. Then came back to run against Senator Murphy and lost resoundingly with 39% of the vote. And then went on to run for a local state Senate seat and couldn't even run that after one statewide race, race, one regional race, lost all 5, and now thinks that can win a statewide race. There's no way. I'm the better candidate, whether it's statewide, local. I'm a proven winner, a proven leader, and I can win this election.
Gerry Smith and Matt Corey, we're going to take a quick time out. We'll be right back. Welcome back. We are here with Gerry Smith and Matt Corey, the 2 candidates for the U.S. Senate in Connecticut, representing the Republican Party, and they're both vying in the primary coming up. I want to ask you, this past spring, both Senators Murphy and Blumenthal voted on a foreign aid bill, voted to support a foreign aid bill to help Israel, Ukraine, and Taiwan. Would you have voted for that, Mr. Corey?
No, I wouldn't have. I would have separated that bill. And the money that's going to Ukraine, I don't understand why Senator Murphy is on the Foreign Relations Committee. Why isn't he talking about peace over in Ukraine? So NATO, the NATO expansion is why Russia went in there. So Russia, after the first day they invaded Ukraine, the second day they were asking for peace talks. Senator Murphy, he was all about undermining the previous administration by going over to Iran, but he won't go over to Ukraine and with a delegation to talk peace. So I would have voted against that. And for him to withhold funds from Israel, our #1 ally in the Middle East, that is a complete failure right there.
Would you have voted for that?
You know, when you look at these bills, that's kind of one of the problems where we are where we are with inflation and different other issues. And the funding of one has nothing to do with the other. They're 3 distinct different issues. And I think when President Trump gets back in office, we'll be in a position of strength. There were no wars back in 2016 when Donald Trump was in office. And I think when Donald Trump gets back in office, we won't be having these conversations because we'll be in a position of strength and we'll be the world leader once again. And won't be there. But I stand behind Israel. I think that we need to. So there are certain cases where we do definitely need to stand behind our friends and make sure that we can shore them up and be there. But make no mistake, with Donald Trump back in office, we won't have these. We'll have a lot less of these issues.
Would you have voted for that bill?
No, not in this president. Not with the 3 bundled together.
And in terms of Ukraine, what should our policy be going forward?
It should be that we need to. It's something that where we need to make sure that we can, if there's a path to victory, and I think there was no clear path to victory. Now we're just sending money over there, and it's not getting any direction. So I think with President Trump back in office, I think he'll negotiate. He'll sit Zelensky and Putin down, and I believe that we'll find some common ground.
Should we ever have been involved?
From the beginning, I believe we wouldn't have been involved if Donald Trump was in there from the beginning. But since we were there, we did need to protect our ally. They're a NATO partner, not a member, so they're trying to get part of it. So I believe that we should have represented their interest.
And if Mr. Trump is elected and he comes to you and you're elected in January and says, you know, Senator Corey, what should I do in Ukraine? What would you tell him?
Look, he was already talking about peace. He said he would end the war day 1. He would end the war day 1 and negotiate with both of them. And Zelensky ran. 3 years ago, he ran on a peace deal. He says, I'll have peace with Russia. But I want to go back to something really quick, Dennis. You know, the message that Gerry Smith and the Republican Party is sending out, that if you run for races that are hard to win, then don't step up. So I ran 2 races and a congressional race in the 1st district. It's the most safest seat in the country. There hasn't been a Republican candidate since 1958, and that was Edwin May out of Wethersfield. So the races I won, I took those battles on where nobody wanted to take them on. And I'm still in the fight because I haven't quit.
I'd have to say that, I mean, when there was nobody in this race, when I decided to run, there were 2 people who had habitually run for this office. There were no credible candidates, none. So I did step up to a race that I thought was going to be a difficult race. My first race that I ran as a local election was against a 14-year Democrat incumbent in a Democratic town, and I won. So I have won hard races. This is my first statewide race, and I believe that I'll win this race, and I will make it to Washington, D.C. I believe the only way that Mr. Corey's going to make it to D.C. is if he goes down there on vacation.
Why do you think that Leora Levy lost last time? I'll be with you, Mr. Gerry. Why did she lose? I mean, you've studied that race, both of you.
Look, we're in a blue state, Dennis. So Leora Levy.
But what's changed since now?
Look, it's the economy. If you look at what's happening around the state, the affordability, the open borders, the crime that's up, the peace. There's no peace around the world right now. We're on the verge of World War III with this president. So it's a tough race here in Connecticut. So
why do you think she lost?
I think it was a campaign that was actually hard to win because, you know, as you said, there's no difference between then and now. I believe that there's a track. I mean, I don't know Leora Levy's political record as far as winning any election in any offices. I think it comes down to the same thing. You need a proven winner, one who's run elections, whether they're local, congressional, or statewide. You need a winner who's proven winner in winning elections, running elections, and resonating with a cross blend of people, whether they're Democrats, unaffiliated, or Republicans. You need to resonate with the public.
This Week in Connecticut will return after these messages. We're back once again with Matt Corey and Gerry Smith, and I'll begin with you, Mr. Smith, for this next question. I want to talk about immigration. Now, former President Trump has said that on day one, if elected, he'll begin a massive deportation effort, the biggest in American history. It could include people in Connecticut, including some people who are married to people who are here legally. Do you support that?
I do, because we do need to, I mean, if they came here illegally, we need to support the laws that were here. If you came here illegally the first time, then, you know, you need to, I'm all for immigration. We're a nation of immigrants. We all got here legally, but there's a path to citizenship. But it's the failed policies. If you drill down, the border was opened by executive order by President Biden. It was endorsed by current nominee Vice President Harris and rubber stamped by Senator Murphy to open the border and to allow these people to come here. So I think if when these deportations happened in November when Donald Trump was president, you have to trace the fingerprints of this goes right back to the Biden-Harris-Murphy administration because it was a rubber stamp. And you're going to see more of it if you have another 3.5 years of rampant inflation, open borders, defund the police. It's all going to come back to the same issue. So I think that we just need to make sure that we can have a safe state of Connecticut and close the border.
Mr. Corey.
Listen, Dennis, we have to focus on people that are here illegally that are committing the most heinous crimes. Senator Murphy right now is working on a loneliness bill. We have people here violating crimes under sanctuary state laws. You know who's lonely? Is Casey Chadwick's mother, who lost their child to an illegal immigrant here. Rachel Moran's mother. Kids that lost their mother to illegal aliens that are here. We need to deport people that are committing crimes and deport them as fast as we possibly can. With the other people, look, there's a process. If you came over to this country illegally, there's a process. I've worked with a lot of people that came from, in my window cleaning business for 32 years, that came here legally, did it the right way. We're here, it took them about 7 years. And should the process be a little easier? Absolutely. But why should people get a jump on people that are doing things here legally, trying to become a citizen?
Would you support the massive deportation effort?
I would focus after the criminals first, Dennis, and then look at the rest. But what is happening with these 12 million illegals that are coming into this country is overburdening our school systems, our hospitals, and our resources that could be going to other people here in the United States.
I mean, it's a tough road ahead, but President Biden has suggested that he would like to propose term limits for Supreme Court justices. Do you support that?
I do not. I do not. And the problem with this new administration who wants to add to the Supreme Court, Dennis, and the undermining of the rule of law. So when things don't go Senator Murphy's way, he blames the court, which flames rhetoric. So he has no appreciation for the three branches of government. But no, the Supreme Court is where it's at, and they should stay at 9.
I believe it should stay at 9. I believe that there shouldn't be any term limits. I believe that it's justice. It's been set up, and I think that as you get there, it becomes history, and I believe that it's a precedent, and I believe that it's been working, and I don't see any need to expand or impose term limits on it.
Let's talk a little bit about Supreme Court nominees. The next president might be able to select one. What kind of jurist would you like to see as an ideal pick for the U.S. Supreme Court?
One that's, I think common sense just is what I'm going to be bringing down to the Senate, and I think it needs to be somebody who's going to be a free thinker, one who's going to absolutely adjust the rule of law regardless of what party it is, and party affiliation should have no indication as to how they rule on a certain case.
Is there someone who's on the Supreme Court now that you would say, I would like to pick someone like this person?
You know, there are a number, I'd say across the board, the Republicans, they're all pretty good. You could pick any one of those and you'd have a great Supreme Court justice for the next one.
Mr. Corey.
A non-activist judge, a non-activist. And this is what Senator Murphy wants to put on it, because he can't legislate And so when the legislature goes to the Supreme Court about laws that are unconstitutional, he wants an activist judge to overrule and make sure that his laws get passed in the Congress. What I would like to see is maybe another one like a Judge Kavanaugh, wonderful, Amy Coney Barrett, another two justices that abide by the Constitution. They're not activist judges. That's what we need.
Yeah, I'll give you just a quick 30-second response to this, but why are you a better candidate for the U.S. Senate than Chris Murphy, our current senator?
I'm not going to be a rubber stamp for anybody, and I believe that Senator Murphy has proven to be not looking out for the American people. He has his lonely bill and the issues that he's got, but I believe that I would represent the people of America, people of the state of Connecticut, and I would actually enforce the laws and actually make sure that I'm not just a rubber stamp for policies that are not representative of the people in the state of Connecticut.
Mr. Corey.
Listen, the reason I'm sitting here, Dennis, is because no one was making the case why Senator Murphy shouldn't go back to Washington. That's the reason I'm sitting here, per conversation we had before the convention. But the reason why Senator Murphy shouldn't go back to Washington is because he brings no optimism. There's not one thing that he's going to bring that's going to increase the job opportunities, the economy, a secure border. There is nothing that he's bringing forward. As a two-term senator, what positive message is he bringing back to Connecticut and its citizens that he's going to make everybody's life better? It's all about negative and rhetoric.
Only one of you is going to win the primary. Will you support the other in the general election?
Yes.
Yes. If Mr. Smith needs help, I will help him anyway. We need to put a Republican down there in Washington.
Mr. Corey, Matthew Corey, Mr. Smith, Gerry Smith, good to see you here in the program. Best of luck.
Thank you, Dennis.
We'll see you soon.
Thank you, Dennis.
The primary will take place in a few weeks on August 13th. The winner will face off in November against Democratic Senator Chris Murphy. We hope to have him on the program soon. Looking to connect with us? We invite you to email us at thisweek@wtnh.com. We love your story ideas and your comments. You can also find me on social media. I'm on X, I'm on Instagram, and I'm on Facebook. This Week in Connecticut, we'll be right back. While the Olympics kick off in Paris, here in Connecticut, everyone's talking about soccer and honoring the life and legacy of a young girl who died way too soon. This is Tim Harfman shows us why people across our state are putting their cleats out for Avery.
Across Connecticut, pairs of shoes are sitting on stoops and dangling in doorways as soccer players put their cleats out for Avery.
Avery was very encouraging and positive. She wouldn't get down on herself. She would keep pushing.
She was nice. She was caring. She was always, like, by my side.
She was a really good friend of mine, and it's kind of sad that I won't see her anymore.
Avery Marie Lafferty was from Milford and lost her battle with pediatric brain cancer earlier this month. She was 12 years old.
She wasn't just a girl that had cancer. She was also a very important person to everyone else.
Ashley Tilkey works with Avery's mom and serves with Avery's Little Army, a newly formed nonprofit to keep the girl's legacy alive and fund pediatric cancer research. Ashley says Avery was diagnosed in December 2021 and kept fighting.
She went through a brain surgery that January of 2022, and by the end of March 2022, she was back out on the soccer field.
Avery was a soccer superfan, even met the U.S. women's national team. Teammates, classmates, and friends are spearheading the hashtag Cleats Out for Avery on social media in the girl's memory.
I'm really happy that we're doing this for her because I know that she would have appreciated it, and I know her parents appreciate it too.
As I talk to them and they read, Facebook messages and just, texts they get, these small little things bring huge smiles to their faces during what is obviously an awful time.
A small gesture for a girl who had a huge impact.
We miss you. You're a great person, and I wish you were still by my side.
In Milford, Tim Harfman, News 8.
What a great program. Well, thanks for sharing your time with us. For This Week in Connecticut, you can catch us every Sunday morning at 10 o'clock right here on WTNH. I'll see you on the news tomorrow. And up next, Tom Dunchick and the Capitol Report crew. Have a great day, everybody.